You know, down in Waco, Texas, there was something called Twin Peaks Restaurant, and a couple of biker gangs got into it there, and about 178 people, I believe it was, were shot or injured or something.
I think it was 5 gangs, wasn't it?
5, all of them together. I mean, it was they all came together, they blew up, but then, of course, that's one bad thing, but another place that was slaughtered, bodies were littered in the streets after the brutal butchers of ISIS killed at least 500 people this weekend when they captured the city of Ramadi in Iraq. I believe, the capital of Anbar province. They also forced thousands more to flee from their homes. Terry?
Well, the victory is calling into question President Obama's strategy for defeating ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Heather Sells has the story.
In Iraq's Anbar province, thousands are fleeing Ramadi in the wake of ISIS seizing control. Over the weekend, many headed to Baghdad, but were stopped at this bridge for security reasons. The UN says more than 100,000 people have escaped from Ramadi and the nearby area this year as violence has peaked. The ISIS victory recalls a similar triumph last year when the terrorists captured a third of Iraq, declaring it a caliphate or Islamic State. This latest ISIS victory brings into question the U.S. strategy of relying solely on airstrikes. The U.S. had hoped the strikes would effectively support Iraqi troops in driving ISIS out. The administration is winning praise, however, for taking out the key accountant for ISIS. On Saturday, Delta forces killed Abu Sayyaf, who oversaw ISIS oil and gas operations in Syria.
This is not just another person. Their revenue streams are extremely important for their survival.
Lawmakers from both parties are applauding the raid, saying the death of a major leader is a psychological blow to ISIS and an intelligence win for the U.S.
Just a better way to gather intelligence versus just airstrikes. So it takes guts for the administration and our military to put an action like this together.
Nunez, the new House Intelligence Chair, is also warning that the U.S. must employ a strategy to degrade ISIS across the globe and not merely focus on containing it in Iraq and Syria. The strategy, he says, would take a broad view of ISIS, which is recruiting fighters from the West and North Africa.
ISIS I describe as Al-Qaeda 6.0, which is what Ambassador Crocker defined ISIS as. So this is really the 6th generation of Al-Qaeda.
And now the question is, how will the United States deal with that new generation of terrorists? Will it keep up its strategy of airstrikes, or will there be more calls for boots on the ground? Heather Sells, CBN News.
Didn't it make you sick, ladies and gentlemen, what happened? I mean, we won that thing. It cost great sums of treasure. It cost the precious lives of American servicemen and women. People were maimed. They were killed. We fought to gain ascendancy, especially in Anbar province. We won Tikrit. We won all those places. We won Fallujah. Our brave Marines went in there, and they were shot up, and we won the victory. And what happens? Well, the president comes in, doesn't sign a status of forces agreement with the Maliki administration, and lets the whole thing go to pieces. And then he allows that clown Maliki to force the Sunnis into a rebellious state. The army is decimated, and that's what happens when you're not in charge of things. Nature abhors a vacuum. That's a statement that has been said over and over again. And a vacuum of leadership is deadly. This is deadly, ladies and gentlemen. The terrorists have now got Ramadi. They've got Ramadi, which apparently is the key to Anbar province, which in turn is the key to Baghdad. And it won't be long before they'll be making an assault on Baghdad, and whether the central government in Iraq can hold remains to be seen. Probably not, the way things are happening now. So in any event, that's the world we live in. Pray for relief for our great nation. Well, in other news, one of the candidates, hey, the Republicans have got so many candidates. I think they've got some good candidates, but they've just got too cotton-picking, many of them. And Jeb Bush is one who has been speaking out on some of the key issues. He's considered the front runner, or one of them. And he wanted to talk about religious liberty. So Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, in an exclusive interview, Jeb Bush tells CBN News he believes in unwavering support for traditional marriage. While Bush hasn't officially announced a run for president, he's spending a great deal of time getting ready, including in Iowa. That's where he talked to CBN's David Brody.
Jeb Bush would bring a big name and plenty of money to the presidential horse race, but he's already behind in the state that votes first in the primaries. His famous last name has led to little support in the Iowa polls. While he's not competing in the traditional straw poll, Bush says Iowa is still important.
Are you going to be a serious player in Iowa?
Yeah.
Or what's the sense?
Absolutely. I'm a really competitive guy to begin with. It's hard for me to imagine. I'm going to plan for 5th place. I mean, that's not going to happen. We're going to work hard here.
He'll have work to do for sure. As a GOP establishment figure, he doesn't excite the Tea Party circuit. His support of comprehensive immigration reform and Common Core educational standards hasn't helped either, something on display in Dubuque this weekend.
And I understand that you personally support Common Core.
Here's what I'm for. I'm for higher standards driven by the states. Common Core was established with 45 states voluntarily doing this with no federal government involvement.
Bush's team is quick to point out his socially conservative past. As Florida governor, he championed pro-life causes like a late-term abortion ban and parental notification. He's also stood for school choice and tried to protect prayers at public school events. It's that Jeb Bush that evangelicals want to see emerge in 2016, yet right now, he's fighting skepticism.
The world we live in, people can get their own set of facts and make up their own minds without having all the information.
And so voters came here searching for answers.
I think he did a great job in Florida, and we're here to learn about him, and how he can be an effective national leader.
I'm kind of curious to see what he has to say about everything. I think everything right now is surrounded around the Iraq war and his brother. I think that's taking away from a lot of other important issues.
Indeed, he tripped up last week answering about whether he agreed with his brother's decision to go to war. But in Iowa this weekend, he wasn't backing away from his family.
Look, many of you all know me as George and Barbara's boy, for which I'm proud. Some of you may know that W is my brother. I'm proud of that too. Whether people don't like that or not, they're just going to have to get used to it.
And Jeb Bush hopes conservatives also get used to him defending traditional marriage in a day when doing so has political risks.
They want a candidate eventually who's going to fight on this issue. Are you their guy on this issue? Because they're concerned about the marriage issue.
Well, I'm concerned about it as well. I think traditional marriage is a sacrament. We need to be stalwart supporters of traditional marriage.
Do you believe there should be a constitutional right to same-sex marriage? Because that's the argument in front of the Supreme Court.
I don't, but I'm not a lawyer, and clearly this has been accelerated at a warp pace.
As has the religious liberty issue. So we asked where he stands when it comes to the right of Christian business owners to be forced to partake in same-sex weddings.
Are you okay if they don't provide those type of services? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
If it's based on a religious belief, a big country, a tolerant country ought to be able to figure out the difference between discriminating against someone because of their sexual orientation and not forcing someone to participate in a wedding that they find goes against their moral beliefs.
It's one of the many issues Jeb Bush will have to navigate if he decides to take the presidential plunge. David Brody, CBN News, in Dubuque, Iowa.
And you can see more of David's exclusive political coverage by checking out the Brody File at cbnnews.com. Israelis were shocked this weekend by the second pro-Palestinian proclamation from the Vatican in less than a week, with the Pope comparing Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas to an angel of peace. Chris Mitchell brings us this story now from Jerusalem.
Pope Francis canonized 4 nuns in Rome. 2 of them spoke Arabic and lived in the 1800s, when the Ottoman Empire ruled most of the Middle East. It marked the first time nuns from this region have been canonized.
The Vatican is hoping to encourage persecuted Christians in the Middle East by making the Arabic-speaking nuns saints. But local Catholic clergy have politicized the event by calling them Palestinians, even though a Palestinian identity, people, or state did not exist at that time.
The pontiff created a media storm when he gave Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas a medal. It was widely reported the Pope called Abbas an angel of peace. But according to the Italian daily La Stampa, Francis said, "May the angel of peace destroy the evil spirit of war. I thought of you. May you be an angel of peace." His comment about Abbas followed a treaty the Vatican signed a few days earlier with the Palestinian Authority that effectively recognized a Palestinian state. That Palestinian state wants to divide the city of Jerusalem and make it the capital of a future Palestinian state, including the Old City. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that will never happen.
We will keep Jerusalem united forever under the sovereignty of Israel.
For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, Jerusalem's Old City and the Temple Mount were in Jewish hands. Sovereignty over Jerusalem is the most contested issue in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Many feel the more unilateral support Palestinians receive from Western players like the Vatican, the more contentious the city will become. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And of course, Pat, many wonder, what is the Vatican doing?
Well, I, for one, can't understand it, but, Mahmoud Abbas was essentially a disciple of Yasser Arafat. Yasser Arafat was a creature of the Muslim Brotherhood. He was a terrorist, and Abbas has been pretty much on the side of terror. They have sponsored all kinds of deadly things, and Hamas seems to be working along with them. And to say, may you be an agent or an angel of peace, it ain't gonna happen. The thing that I can't understand is having to do with Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the eternal, undivided capital of the state of Israel. And the thing that I look at in the Bible is the statement of Jesus Christ, who said, "And Jerusalem shall be trodden under foot of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled." And Jerusalem was trodden underfoot under the Babylonians, under the Persians, under the Greeks, under the various other administrations, the Romans, etc. Until such time in 1967, when they took the city and threw out the Jordanians, the Egyptians, and others who were then controlling the area, primarily Jordan, and took control for the first time. There was a fulfillment of the prophecy of Jesus Christ. It was a major, major prophetic event. And I don't care if you're the Pope or you're an angel from heaven, you're not going to frustrate the Bible. And the Bible, the words of Jesus will stand. And those words are there. And Jerusalem will not be divided. And this is going to be the last conflict. It will come down to who owns Jerusalem. And remember, it was won by King David about 1,000 years BC. It's a long, long time ago. Ephraim?
Pat, the death toll from the deadly earthquakes in Nepal is now nearly 8,600, making it the deadliest disaster in the country's history. But as Gary Lane reports, despite the dangerous conditions, CBN Disaster Relief is on the scene with much-needed supplies and help.
A second earthquake last week and an early morning aftershock returned a feeling of fear and insecurity to Nepal. CBN Disaster Relief's Brian Scott is on the ground in Kathmandu.
As soon as the earthquake hit, everyone screamed. Everyone in Kathmandu, it seemed, was the loudest, blood-curdling scream of terror and fear. It was just echoing throughout the entire valley. It was like for about a good minute and a half of just crying out, panicking, because it was an earthquake in the night. Many people were still sleeping in tents. Many people were fatigued from staying up at night and living in a panic and living in fear.
Many people have fled Kathmandu, but CBN disaster relief teams have not given up on helping the people, despite the ongoing earthquake risk. In the capital city and in remote villages, 80 tons of relief from CBN India is on its way. The first truckload arrived in Kathmandu on Saturday and was quickly unloaded by CBN disaster relief team members. The help includes wheat flour, rice, sugar, tarps, blankets, water, and other needed items.
You know, the earthquake is not stopping us. Just because the earth shakes doesn't mean we don't, our relief stops. We're working full time. We're trying to bring as much hope as we can, as much hope and help in the name of Jesus Christ to the people of Nepal.
People like this elderly Nepali man who is now living in a tent because his home is unsafe. He thanks CBN for providing him with rice, blankets, and tarps to help him stay dry when monsoon rains begin in the coming weeks.
It is our pleasure. Our God in heaven gives us the opportunity to give to you, for it is more blessed to give than to receive. As he loves us, we want to love you.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Pat, as we've seen this with the earthquake in Haiti and now Nepal, when others leave, CBN stays.
We sure do. There's no question about it. We're there for the long haul, and we're there for the long haul in Nepal. It's the worst disaster in about 70 or 80 years. It's really a huge thing. But we're talking about the first shipment of 80 tons of rice, sugar, wheat flour, tarps, blankets, etc. And we'll be bringing in more stuff. We're bringing it in from India. And we've got a team on the ground helping those people. So if you want to participate in helping the suffering people as a result of this devastating earthquake, Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's 800-759-0700. We're there because we care. The hand of Jesus extended, and you can be part of that hand.